We talk a lot on this channel about what Americans completely misunderstand about Germany. Like, we really do. But that comparison totally goes both ways. Because Germany has its own assumptions about America. And honestly, it is fascinating to watch what happens when a German tourist actually lands in the US and realizes that the version of America they have built in their head from Hollywood movies and the news doesn't exactly match reality. Some criticisms, yeah, they remain completely valid. But other assumptions become really hard to maintain once people experience the country themselves. Let's start with the map delusion. If you spend any time on German travel forums or watch videos of German tourists planning their American road trips, there's this repeated, hilarious mistake that happens every single time. A German traveler will post their itinerary online, and it will be something like, okay, we land in New York on Monday, we will drive down to Florida by Tuesday, afternoon, pop over to the Grand Canyon on Thursday, and fly out of LA on Sunday. And Americans are in the comments like, are you out of your mind? You have to remember, culturally and geographically, Germans are used to a totally different scale. Germany is roughly the size of Montana. You can drive across the entire country in a single day if the Autobahn doesn't have a massive traffic jam. So the sheer scale of the US is something you cannot mathematically comprehend until you are actually physically there. I mean, there are endless TikToks of German visitors driving for 14 hours straight and realizing they are somehow still in Texas. It literally breaks their brains. The concept of space in America is just entirely different. But we will get to the crazy part about American infrastructure in a minute. First, I need to explain the biggest cultural hurdle of them all: the friendliness. Look, before they visit, a lot of Germans are convinced that Americans are completely fake. The whole, hi, how are you? Have a great day thing at the grocery store? To a German, that feels incredibly weird. In Germany, if a stranger asks how you are, you either give them a genuine medical update about your bad back, or you assume they are trying to pickpocket you. So the assumption is that Americans are just superficial and emotionally shallow. But then they visit. And a really common reaction you see from Europeans after spending a few weeks in the States is this weird realization that, wait, actually, let me rephrase that. It's not that they suddenly think cashiers are their deeply devoted best friends, but they realize that American small talk isn't about forming a lifelong bond. It is a social lubricant. It is just a way to acknowledge another human being in a shared space. And get this, a lot of German visitors actually end up loving it. You read these Reddit threads from returning expats or exchange students, and they admit they kind of miss the random compliments from strangers. They miss the lady at Target telling them they like their shirt. It's a completely different social contract. Sociologists call it the peach versus coconut culture. Americans are like peaches, right? Soft and friendly on the outside, but getting to that hard pit in the center, getting to be a true, deeply loyal friend, that takes a long time. Germans are coconuts. Hard and kind of intimidating on the outside, but once you crack them open, they are the sweetest, most fiercely loyal friends you will ever have. Neither is wrong. It's just wild watching tourists realize that American cheerfulness isn't malicious deception. It's just how a highly diverse society functions without constant friction. Now, we have to talk about the food, because the European stereotype of American food is just grim. The assumption is that Americans wake up, drink a gallon of high fructose corn syrup, eat a plastic wrapped hamburger, and call it a day. And to be fair, yes, the bread in America is basically cake. I am not defending American sandwich bread. German bread is a protected cultural treasure for a reason. But what visitors are repeatedly shocked by is the actual food diversity in the US. When German tourists get out of the tourist traps and actually eat in places like New Orleans or Texas or California, their minds are blown. One thing that appears repeatedly in travel vlogs is the discovery of authentic Mexican food. Because let's be real, you cannot get good Mexican food in Germany. You just can't. A German tourist trying a real street taco in LA for the first time is practically a spiritual experience. They expect all American food to be processed garbage, and instead, they find this massive, chaotic blend of global cuisines. They find incredible farm-to-table restaurants. They find regional barbecue that takes 14 hours to smoke. So the stereotype of America having no food, culture just completely disintegrates. Although, they are still horrified by the portion sizes. That part is 100% true. You order a medium soda and they hand you a bucket. Which brings us to the convenience factor. And this is a big one. Germans come from a society where things are regulated, orderly, and honestly, a bit restrictive when it comes to consumerism. Stores close on Sundays. Period. It's the law. It's called the Ladenschlussgesetz, and you just have to deal with it. You want a snack at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday? Good luck. Find a gas station. So when Germans visit the US, they are highly critical of American car dependency. And rightfully so. American public transit in most cities outside the Northeast is a joke compared to Europe. The idea that you literally cannot walk from your hotel to a restaurant across the street because there is a massive 6-lane highway in the way is terrifying to a European. That criticism holds up. But, and this is the fascinating part, while they hate the car dependency, they are absolutely mesmerized by the sheer convenience of American consumerism. You watch these vlogs of German families walking into a Walmart or a Target for the first time, and it is like they just walked into a cathedral. The aisles are massive. You can buy a flat-screen TV, a kayak, and a rotisserie chicken at midnight on a Sunday. And the free refills? The concept that you can just keep drinking soda until your heart stops, for free, is mind-boggling. Plus, ice. Ice in drinks. In Germany, if you order a water at a restaurant, you are getting room temperature sparkling water, and you are going to pay €3 for it. In America, they slam down a massive glass of ice water for free before you even look at the menu. To an American, that is basic human decency. To a European tourist, it feels oddly luxurious. There is a huge psychological difference here. In Germany, realism and pragmatism are deeply valued. Pointing out flaws, complaining about terrible weather, or strictly following the rules is seen as helpful and grounding. American optimism, on the other hand, is often viewed from afar as naive or delusional. But when Germans actually spend time in the US, many traveler accounts point out how refreshing the can-do attitude feels. Even if it borders on toxic positivity sometimes, being surrounded by people who say, "Yeah, let's try it," instead of, "No, that violates Section 4 of the building code," can be incredibly liberating for someone stepping out of German society. It is so easy to sit in Europe and judge the US based on what makes the news, just like it is easy for Americans to romanticize Europe as this flawless utopia of walkable cities and universal healthcare, while ignoring the massive bureaucracy and the crushing taxes. But when people actually cross the ocean, the reality is always so much messier and so much more interesting. German visitors often leave the US exhausted by the lack of sidewalks, terrified of the healthcare system, and completely baffled by the gap in bathroom stalls. Seriously, why are the gaps in American public restrooms so wide it is deeply unsettling to everyone who visits? But they also leave with a weird appreciation for the unapologetic optimism. They leave realizing that the superficial friendliness actually makes your day a little brighter. That the vastness of the country is genuinely beautiful in a way photos cannot capture, and that maybe, just maybe, having air conditioning everywhere isn't the worst thing in the world. Both sides have their blind spots. Both systems make a lot more sense once you understand the geography, the psychology, and the history that built them. And honestly, watching someone from Bavaria try to comprehend the existence of a drive-through ATM will just never stop being funny to me.